Hello there, what's going on, everybody? Today we have a community talk interview, and we're going to be talking with, you may know him as Karneck, I know him as Derek, but he runs the Star Wars Armada Explained YouTube channel, and we're going to be talking about Star Wars Armada today. So, Derek or Karneck, how you doing?
Hey, Tim, it's such a pleasure to meet you. It's all right if I call you
You
Tim?
can call me Tim, you can call
Okay,
me Crab, you can call
perfect.
me Nunchuck, I don't care. Yeah.
I love your nunchuck stuff, but thank you for the introduction. Thank you for asking me to do stuff like this. I love talking with the community, regardless if it's just Star Wars Armada. I know you branch out into so many different facets. I'm a huge fan of yours,
Well,
but
thank you.
Star Wars Armada Explained is just focusing on just explaining how Star Wars Armada works, just like the upgrade cards, crazy interactions, and sometimes the objectives, things like that. And my channel right now, I'm trying to do a really big push to hit 1,000 subscribers because I was able to stream Worlds this year, and because the people were really nice and let me do that, but also because FFG had no plans to stream at all, and I was able to do that from my mobile phone setup. Well, YouTube, after what happened at Christchurch, understandably has limited people being able to stream from mobile, and you
Right.
need 1,000 subscribers in order to do that. I am so close. And if anyone, if you check out my content and you like it and you want to know more and hear more, please subscribe. I'm about 150 people away from hitting 1,000. And I have a huge tournament coming up on May 11th. We're doing, I believe, the first 800-point round tournament. It's going to take all day. Schmitty is
800
setting
points.
that up.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So whereabouts is this? Are you because you were at Adepticon for Worlds, and that was, I
Yes.
think, that was like a really big deal because I remember trying to find out what was going on. I watched a little bit of the stream, but like, what? Tell me about like the difficulty you had with trying to stream that. Were you getting cut off, or because I couldn't watch? I'll admit I did not watch the whole thing. I mean, Armada rounds are long, and I don't know how many of us can sit and watch for like 2 hours, like just with nothing else going on. But so
Right.
I would try to check back when I could. But like, tell me like what kind of restrictions did they actually put on you? Like, did it cut off the feed or?
So, or fortunately for me, I actually had almost no issue streaming at Worlds. I was actually able to stream just off of my mobile data alone, which I have limited data. I was able to stream that at a very high quality. I had a setup for that. In terms of the actual stream itself, when we went to FFG, I think at the beginning of the first day, we said, "Hey, is there going to be a live stream or recording of Worlds this year?" And the look on their faces as soon as I asked that question was just pretty much like, you could immediately tell that they wanted to say yes, but they're like, no, we have no plans to do anything. And so we're like, do
I
you?
can imagine them saying like, guy, it's not X-wing. We're not gonna stream it. It's not
Well,
Legion. We're not. It's no. It's not one of our
do
golden
you?
children right
Well,
now.
do you know what the Legion and X-wing guys had to do? They had to hire third-party people for all their stuff too.
Well, they have
The
some
thing is,
dedicated people that have worked. I know, like Gold
right?
Squadron comes in. They have like this
Mm-hmm.
deal. They work with FFG, and I believe it was Fifth Trooper podcast for Legion that
Yes.
that was doing all of that. But so like they didn't even have to arrange for it because they have like well, I love the
Well,
Armada community, but
yeah.
those other games have exploded,
Mm-hmm.
especially with all of the stuff FFG's like been pumping into them. I mean, we haven't had an expansion in over a year, so like I'm amazed that the community is going as strong as it is right now. So I can see there being issues with trying to find people to stream. So I was actually really glad that you were able to do that. And
Yeah.
so I would like
And
to
for
just like for
them,
anybody who's watching, like definitely there will be a link
yeah.
in the description to the Star Wars Armada Explained channel. Please go and subscribe, and it's going to help everybody get more content in the future.
Oh, thank you so much. I really do, again, appreciate that drive. And you mentioned that it really does mean a lot to me because, like I said, huge fan of your videos. I watch almost all of them. I don't really watch the X-wing stuff because that's
I
not my
do put
play
out a
style.
lot. I put out a lot for everybody. I don't expect. I don't even watch them. So like, of course I'm
but
there. So yeah. But
but to answer your question, when I did ask FFG, I approached them and they're like, technically, we can't say yes, you can because there's restrictions on that in terms of quality control, things that you're allowed to say, not to say. But they said if you set up a stream and both the players who are playing in finals consent to it, we will let you stream as long as they're okay with it.
So they didn't
And
want to endorse it because then all of a sudden there
yeah,
becomes legal. And that's smart
yes,
because they're licensees and stuff, and because now it's not just you're streaming FFG and they endorsed it, but now it's also a Star Wars product. So does that could somehow make Lucasfilm implicit if you were to
yes.
in the middle of the stream say something really controversial, you know? Yeah.
Well,
So
we had in the opening scene, Geek 19 cracked a cold one right on the live stream
oh
as we
boy.
started. So yeah, any licensing deal I would have had just went out the window. But no, it was fantastic. And actually, during the whole thing, the players, we tried to do like active camera work, but again, the stream just couldn't quite keep up that, not being dedicated equipment. So we eventually just put it on a tripod. It recorded the whole thing, and there are a couple of bits where it does, fade in and out, and it's not so good quality. But we always try to make sure we're keeping it on the action. And by and large, the response from the community was just, hey, thanks for even doing anything. And so I'm just happy I was in the right place at the right time, because I almost didn't go to Worlds this year because it was just not, just like with anything, real life stuff comes up. I was just lucky enough to get there, and it was a fantastic event. I'm so happy I went.
Oh yeah, I wish I could have made it because I went to Celebration and I couldn't make the 2 trips. So if I was closer, I wish they would do Worlds in Florida because then it would be so much easier. But I guess that's first world problems.
Yeah. But the 800-point tournament that we're going to be doing, I live in the Northwest. I live in Oregon. I actually live 3 hours away from anybody who plays.
Oh wow!
That I have to drive to. Yeah, the tournament is about 3.5 hours away. That we drive to, I'll be there. So essentially, it's waking up at like 3 a.m. in the morning, driving to the tournament, playing all day, and then driving, early back home. But for me, that kind of stuff doesn't bother me. I do lots of long calls like that all the time. So
yeah, if you're used to those drives, I find an audiobook really helps out.
Yes.
All right. So what made you get started in doing a YouTube channel for Armada?
Well, I'm on the Armada Discord a lot, and a lot of people come in, and what I saw was lots of people were asking, essentially, new players, the same questions over and over and over again. And not that the people who mind answering questions, we love answering questions on there, but it's just kind of like, man, it just seems like it'd be really easy if you could just link a video and just kind of just be done with it without having to explain it every single time. And I don't claim that I'm an authority on all this, but I do make sure I'm talking to Ian Cross. He's the world's judge for FFG. And again, he can't give me any official,
It's about as close to official as you can get. Yeah.
Exactly. And not only him, but I talk to regional TOs from all over. So when I'm doing these videos, I'm making sure I'm trying to do it right and not present it as my opinion or my viewpoint, unless I say that, but as something that as a material for new players, because as you've played Armada, sometimes you'll run across like, I didn't know. Yeah. Oh, you played? Well, that's
once
crazy.
or twice, yeah.
But you probably know that you've run into a scenario where like somebody will pull out a card or something, and then they'll do something. You're like, wait, you can't do that. And they're like, well, no, because of this, this, and this, now I can. And you're all like, what the heck? I didn't know that. So that's kind of my goal of my channel, is to explain like how that kind of stuff works.
For me, I love that, because that's a good point you bring up. I find a lot of times, especially if you've been playing for a long time, and veteran players I run across all the time that are definitely not immune to this, is that you will have assumed something to be true for like 3 years, and then all of a sudden somebody blows your mind and this glass is shattered. For me, it was squadrons touching on an obstacle. We always said, if the squadrons are touching, then it can't be obstructed. But and then it was actually in the Armada Discord, and I forget if it was one of the Karneck get your ship out guys, or if it was Drass, or one of the authorities in like the rules thing was like, no, actually they can still be obstructed because you measure cardboard to cardboard. And I was like, oh, and the bases are just angled at like 1 or 2 degrees, so technically the line would still go. Wow.
Yes.
And as somebody in my community who a lot of people would ask me questions, I've always been not the authority, but kind of like a next best thing. I've been telling people the wrong answer to that question for years. So then I have to go back to like everybody. I'm like, hey, I was wrong about this, so I apologize, and I'm sorry if you told somebody. It's like, tell everybody that you have ever told that I was wrong and that you were wrong too, and then we start this chain. So no, but like the things like that are really useful, especially for not just new players but old players to go back as well, and just make sure that you're challenge your assumptions. You assume this is the way it works. You may find out maybe a new mechanic, or or just an interaction that you hadn't foreseen before, which is it happens all the time. Yeah.
It does. And another thing too is like for a long time the same example is that people thought that, for example, the two ship shield dials, if they were touching over an obstacle, people were like, oh yeah, you trace line of sight over it. And again, it states in the rule book that you don't count shield dials. Shield dials actually do not block line of sight. A lot of people think that they do.
Oh, yeah. I understand. I think the only thing they really count for is if you're bumping, because you have to be able to physically place the ship.
Bumping and overlapping, yes.
Would they count for overlapping obstacles? Just the carbon?
That's correct. So the shield dials count for if you overlap.
It just happened again, guys.
Squadron ships are obstacles, but if your shield dial is off the edge of the playmat, your shield dial doesn't count for actually flying off the table.
There you go. Okay. Good deal. I
So,
don't ever try to push it that close if I can help it. But yeah. So all right. So let's. Do you have? So speaking of let's talk a little bit about like player interactions and stuff. Do you have as an Armada player? Do you have like a preferred faction?
Oh, Empire.
Empire. Okay.
Yeah. In the Northwest, when I first started, everyone played Rebels. Everyone was a Rebel player. So I'm like, well, I gotta represent the troops, and I almost exclusively play Empire. I will play Rebels casually just because I want to understand how they work and making sure that I'm very competitive. So I just like understanding my opponent. The only way you can understand your opponent is by playing as a Rebel. So but
and if you
Empires,
didn't play them at all, you'd be cutting yourself off from half of the game, effectively.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I own. Oh man, I don't even thousands of dollars worth of Armada stuff. And,
Yeah, and
and
at
I
its price
have
point, that's not too hard to get to.
I have a 3D printed die tower. It's a turbo laser that
Nice.
tracks my opponents.
All right. So, do you have a favorite ship or ship build?
Oh man, the standard ISD2 ECM leading shots.
Okay.
That's my
It's a
favorite
classic.
ship because, I mean, it's a bunch of firepower compact into 140 points. You just can't beat it. I mean, ISD is one of the best ships in the game, is my personal opinion.
Oh, I think you have a point there. I mean, so speaking about best ships in the game, do you think ISD was? So you were at Worlds. Was that one of the most represented ships? I mean, I would guess.
Definitely.
Yeah. So
ISDs were everywhere.
Well, I mean, and it's weird because if you think about it, from a certain point of view, I feel like if you're new to Armada, you'd probably be expecting, well, they're the Empire, they should have all ISDs. That should be like the only thing they ever fly. And I think it's really funny how FFG has kind of taken that mentality and really kind of made it fit into this game because. If you look at how many different ships are available to the Empire, there's a decent number now. It wasn't always that way, but now even with all the different ships they have, you don't see that many Imperial builds that don't have at least an ISD in.
Right.
Or sometimes you see just two ISDs. That's definitely very popular.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of fun to fly two ISDs with the red dye, the Cry Moon versions.
Yes.
It's just because it's fun. It doesn't have to be competitive to be fun. Is the way I have people ask me questions like that all the time. It's like, oh, I want to fly this, this, and this. I'm like, well, whatever is going to be fun, but just so you know, that's not going to be competitive. And if you want me to break it down, I definitely will. But that's I try to encourage people, even if it's not competitive, go fly it because that only helps you understand the game better, understand mechanics better. It also helps you to develop your own play style as well. You don't know what your play style is until you go out there and do it. Like for me, I tried flying. So I can't say how many billions of dollars worth of Raiders have exploded on my table, but I can't play Raiders. I'm not a good Raider player. I can't do it. But there are people who are really good.
I've seen some do really, really well with Raiders, and I've seen some Raiders do quite poorly. And I think that's a ship that has definitely a learning curve.
Yes. I would love to see Empire get another Speed Force ship because I think Ozzel is a great commander, but I think he works better with those faster, speedy ships. So hopefully that's something the pipeline for in the future.
Ozzel is I'm not gonna lie, Ozzel is a 4-letter word in around here at least. Nobody runs Ozzel around here, and I'll go up to a tournament and I'll mention so I was thinking about running an Ozzel build, but people will laugh. It's funny the difference from region to region because talking in other places, some people really love Ozzel. I can't stand him because I look at it like this. There's an upgrade. There's a fleet upgrade that does the same thing automatically. You don't even have to do the nav command, So I'm like, all right, but different strokes for different folks. And I agree with you. I think if there were more Speed Force ships, then perhaps, because then you could double him up with entrapment formation. Then you could, and a nav token, and then you could really. I think the fun factor alone of that scenario would probably be worth it. And I probably would fly him a little more if I had like 5 Raiders or so, but I only have 3, and I just can't see buying like a couple more Raiders just for that, just to try it out. I could probably borrow some Raiders from somebody else, but yeah, I guess maybe I'll do that. Maybe you're inspiring me at this point.
So, and your question too about my favorite ship, and I was so surprised. If you've seen Worlds, anyone who watched Worlds, was when the players were setting up, you do not see any large ships on the table. Like all of us meta people who were there talking, watching the game, like we were blown away by the fact that there were no large ships on the table, and the fact that there was no Yavaris, there was no Demolisher. What's that? Is that an Arcanins? Like stuff like that just blew us away because that's not what's considered quote unquote competitive, and it really showed just the high level of play at Worlds is that these players didn't bring what was quote unquote popular. I brought what was popular. I brought stupid 2-ship because that's what I've been playing for months. But they brought lists that were not only designed to beat competitive lists like that, but also still able to stand on their own 2 legs against anything else that they're going to come up against. And that just speaks to the high quality of play that it takes to get the top table. I was just really impressed by that. Watching in person, by the way, is nothing like watching online because you can actually hear what the players are saying to each other, the banter that's going back and forth. So that's what one thing I really enjoyed, being able to see what was going on there. Another fun thing about that live stream I did want to touch on was that so the camera was up on a pole. I mean, we're talking like 6-7 feet up to get the view. And so I had to climb up on a chair to be able to check the screen to make sure it was still recording and everything. And Jimmy, who is technically the lead guy of FFG supervising the Armada tournament, he came over to me and he was all like, "Are you going to fall on this table?" While during the finals, like, "You're making me nervous, man." I'm like, I just got this chair. He's like, "I will go get you a step ladder." And he went and got me a step ladder.
That's awesome.
So FFG technically did contribute, but yeah, my thought
well,
too
they were
was
more
like,
concerned with not having somebody falling.
Oh yeah,
that would
somebody
have made
falling
for a
and
really
ruining
good
the
story. Like I want to go next time and just live stream the live streamers so I can catch in slow mo, like in high resolution. Live streamer falls through table.
Right. I didn't want to be the guy who ruined Worlds for. I definitely wouldn't be invited back.
I would have titled that "The Guy Who Made Worlds Unforgettable," personally. All right, so let me ask you. Now, is Armada your first foray into tabletop, or was there another game? Or like, what drew you to Armada? And I think that's actually 2 questions. So we'll start with what other games do you play?
I'll answer both. I mean, I've done Dungeons and Dragons and little miniatures running around, but as in terms of like a major dedicated miniatures game, the only thing that's played in my local area is Warhammer. And as soon as I started researching into that, I immediately just backed out the door and just noped right out of it because of not only expense, but just because you read about how the community of that is toxic, and my local community was just not encouraging at all either. And then I looked into X-Wing, and I kind of was reading into that, but that was right as, it was showing a lot of problems as well. And I'm like, well, I don't want to jump into a game where it's showing, because I mentioned before I'm competitive. I don't want to jump into something that is having problems competitively. And then that's when I hit upon Star Wars Armada as the next thing. I'm like, oh man, I love big ships. I don't want to fly little tiny squadrons. And so that's what drew me to Armada, was because I felt like that was going to be the best game for me to get into. It is technically my first major miniatures game. I didn't really play anything else. I play a lot of online games, and I've played a lot of board games online, but that was the first one I actually paid real money for plastic ships to play on a table. And I'm really happy I did that, because part of the reason for that was that I'm an introvert. All I want to do is just stay in my house. And I'm like, man, I need to get out and experience the wider world of nerddom. And it's really helped me to accomplish that. I had so much fun.
I think that's definitely, you make a good point there. That's one thing I think the tabletop games do in general, is they get you still playing a game, especially for people who played video games before. and I was one that did this, and it's just it gets you going to a store or going to a tournament and talking with other people who have the same interests as you, and something like this, it's also people who are interested in Star Wars, so you're going to be around fellow geeks. It's extremely rare. I think it's only one time I've ever seen somebody who played like between this and X-Wing and Legion and stuff to actually run into somebody who is not like a complete Star Wars geek. Like one time I ran into somebody who was just had a passing interest and just wanted to do it for the wargaming aspect of it. But generally, yeah, you're running into like-minded people, cool people, usually people who are a little bit more mature, because a game like this I think takes a little bit of disposable income, and so you're not really getting like the 14-year-old kids as much who want to trash talk and talk about your mother, etc. And
well, the trash talking still happens. It's just on a more mature level.
It's a little bit more, yeah. I can agree with that. But yeah, so like I think that's a great aspect of it. Now you also do, speaking of online games, you do a lot of Vassal, right?
Yes.
So and that's one of the things you use to create some of your videos, right? So tell us more about
Yeah, that's actually what launched my channels, because we'd have tons of people come into Discord like, I want to play online, which is better, Vassal or Tabletop Simulator? And we're like, well, Vassal is free. They're like, okay, I want to play that. How do I even do all this? And Green Knight was the guy who originally made the module for Vassal for Star Wars Armada on there. And he had got to a point where he was just done with Armada. He actually pulled all of his tutorial videos down. And I was like, hey, do you mind if I make videos then? He's like, nah, man, go for it. I'm tired of people asking me questions. I don't have time for it. I'm like, cool. So that was actually my first foray into wanting to be helpful to the community, was making these online videos for Vassals. And there's 4 videos. It takes about an hour to go through them all, and it will walk you from not being able to understand what you're doing to at least being able to get a game going, started, and be confident enough to be able to complete that game. Within your first game will probably take about 3 hours or so to complete.
So for anybody watching who is not familiar with Vassal, can you like give like a good a quick overview of what exactly it is and what it lets them do?
Sure. So Vassal is a free program. It definitely is a dated program, but it lays out a board state that is all online. All the pieces are online. So even if you don't physically own pieces, it allows you to experiment and play around. So this program is something you do need to download and install on your computer. But other than it's free to get on. You play against people from all over the world, which is great, because I play against people from Europe, from Italy and in Germany, and they kick my butt 9 times out of 10. And to actually get started on this is you just need to download 2 or 3 different things, and then you click some buttons and you're right there in it. And I mean, it's pretty straightforward. It allows you to play Armada online with other people from all over the world. And
that's from like a top-down perspective, like a 2-dimensional
like
overhead view. Whereas like Tabletop Simulator is more of a 3D, like almost like an interactive. Like I can see a table and you can move around the table. And I tried doing Tabletop Simulator. I've not played Vassal. I think I tried it one time years and years ago, and in the absence of a tutorial, I quickly gave up. But you
definitely need to watch the tutorial to understand what's going on. Vassal is very much a function over form. So Tabletop Simulator does represent more of like a game how you would play in real life, while Vassal is essentially, it is a top-down view, and it is what we say, quote-unquote, pixel perfect, meaning you're either in or you're out. There's none of the fumbleness of like in a real game where, is it not, and the players have more banter than that. Yeah,
we need Ian Cross standing on a table.
But I wouldn't say that Vassal is the best way to understand truly how Armada is played, but if you have nothing else, like for me, I'm 3 hours away from my closest playing people. That's how I stay in practice, and that's how I play.
Sure.
So if you don't have a local group yet, you should get started on it. Not you specifically, anyone watching, but it's a great way to learn the mechanics of the game. The community is very patient in teaching you how to play and giving you ideas and pointers and tips. It's just fantastic. Regardless if you choose to play Vassal or Tabletop Simulator, just understand the Vassal community is just a little bit bigger than Tabletop.
All right, that's great. That's great information. So let's talk about Armada and the future of Armada, because there's actually, we actually have a really bright future now, which has been
so
awesome.
Excited.
It's very exciting. Now, out of everything that's going, we'll kind of talk about these one by one, but. For your perspective, is there any particular ship or squadron that that you're hoping to see show up in the game at some point for
In
either faction. Anyway,
for either faction,
yeah.
okay. Um, Boy, I think they've really covered the vast majority. But if I had to hope against hope, man, just for me, I played a lot of TIE Fighter and X-wing. I want to see the crappy little box-shaped dreadnought, and I want to kind of, I don't think they'll ever make it available for both factions, but I would love to see like a cross-faction ship.
The Katana fleet, the Katana fleet.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Well, they do kind of have that ship because it was in Star Wars Rebels, but it was that Dreadnought class heavy cruiser, or called I think the Imperial Support Ship.
Yes,
as what its new canon name is. Although I think its class is still Dreadnought class heavy cruiser, but I'm not 100% sure on that because like some information is on wikis and those can be edited and
right.
But I know that at least they're calling it the support ship, which doesn't sound as flattering to me because it was a it was a warship, not a support ship. What does support ship mean? It's got a medical bay on there and it's got extra fuel reserves. Like, no, give this thing some turbo lasers, So yeah, I would love to see. I'm right there with you. I'd love to see that. I guess here's one. If you could make one change to Armada, the way it is now, anything, whether it's like a mechanic or rule or a price point or changing something about Armada, what would be at the top of your list?
Oh my gosh! So I won't deep dive into what I prefer because there is like 15 different rules in the rule book that all contradict each other that I'd love to see fixed. But the focus on the main mechanic that I feel that new players struggle with the most, it is how squadron play is right now. And squadron play, as you get a lot more experience, it does speed up and get faster. But man, that initial curve of being fast with squadrons just doesn't happen. I mean, I've seen players spend, most of their run out of time because they're fiddling so long with they want the distance one of that one but not that one, but of this guy, and two of this one but out of range of that guy, and it just takes so long. And I just feel like there's probably a way they could try to simplify that. I don't know how, I'm not a game designer, but I'd love to see them try to simplify the squadron mechanic of Armada because I love squadrons personally.
See, I partially agree and partially disagree. I think speeding up the squadron game is one of the best changes that could be made, but at the same time, I'm not a big fan of squadrons. Now, maybe that's because of the partially because of how much it can slow down the game. I mean, I've seen so many 134-point squadron lists. Those games always go to time, and a lot of times it's because, like what you said, I need to make sure I'm within activation range of Yavaris, but also outside of engagement range with this guy, but also close enough to Howl Runner so I can get my extra die, but not in escort range of. It can really
convoluted.
Yes.
Yeah.
So like I've heard some people say, well, what if just you've made it where squadrons had to be touching to be engaged? And I'm like, well, that seems like a very simple solution. I don't know if it's as elegant as it could be, but sometimes simplicity it will get the job done. But yeah, if it was sped up and you could get your games played in a faster time, I think that would be huge.
And I definitely feel like FFG understands and recognizes that. Now, whether if they're actually taking steps to do something like that, who knows? I'd like to believe that they are.
I'd like to, based on my interactions with FFG people, I tend to feel like they are listening, and it's just I think Armada is at a slower release. It's at a lower priority, but not forgotten. And it's getting ready to get better. So with that said, we have a couple of expansions, a couple of things coming out. So I think it's likely the first thing that's actually going to be available will be the Superstar Destroyer. Was supposed to originally be back, last year. It was supposed to be out. Then first quarter this year, and then presumably second quarter. But now it's looking like late summer or third quarter. As an Imperial player, are you excited about the Superstar Destroyer? I mean, maybe that's a kind of a silly question, but how do you feel about that?
The Superstar Destroyer is on Vassal already because we got the measurements and all that because they printed out, as you are fond to mention, the magazine pamphlet.
Yep.
Yeah, we all know about that. But we have that on Vassal, and I've actually played with it. I've played against it. I know a lot of people have fears of like, oh man, this thing's going to be unstoppable. There's no way to beat it. My opinion is that, is it competitive? I don't believe so at this stage. That could change because a lot of people didn't think Thrawn was competitive when he was first released, and now look at him; he's over 50% of Imperial lists.
Mhm.
Is the SSD a lot of fun to fly? Oh man, I love it. It is so much fun to play, not only against but with. It's just the fact that it so drastically changes what is accepted as what a game is. It's either you set up and you fly each other, then fly away. The SSD doesn't fly away. It's there the entire time, and it's your choice if you want to go fight it or not.
Yeah.
And if you don't, I mean, then you're not going to play a game. I'm really excited for it, not because of the new cards. It's just because if you've seen the model in person, anyone who's seen this model in person just knows that it just looks fantastic.
It's so great. Now
it looks so good.
Now at Celebration, I'm not sure if they had it at Adepticon, but they had 2 SSDs on display.
Oh wow!
So they had the actual production, their production sample also on display, and I'll be honest with you, I couldn't tell the difference between the two. So that's a good sign that means that the SSD that we're getting, it looks just as good as the prototype. So that much is cool. And the only way to tell the difference between the two is that the original one still had that real shiny, like that prototype cardboard, and the production model didn't have any cardboard. It just had 2 stands. And I don't know if there's a reason behind that or what. I don't know if they were maybe there's still some secrets in the SSD pack that they just didn't want to tell us about, or whatever the reason was, or maybe just an easy way for them to distinguish which one is the prototype and which one's the real one. But no, that's really exciting, and I think the playthrough with the SSD, when they did that playthrough, there was
answered
a lot
so many questions,
like the half points rule, like that. Now, if that wasn't there, because now you rewind in time, everyone's like, how am I going to kill this ship if it just runs engineering all game? And what if he starts at speed 1 and then like I don't even get to shoot at him for 3 rounds? There's no way. Like, oh, we don't have to kill it. We just have to wound it. Oh, that changes everything. So like, yes, I mean that was quite illuminating.
My favorite SSD build is the Assault prototype with Ravager, the HIEs, and I love Callus on there, and because like fighters are definitely going to come attack it. You need a plan for it. I love leading shots. Obviously, you can't take Tuna. No defensive retrofit which was news to me.
Did you say Tuna?
Yeah, I call her Tuna.
That's awesome. All right.
Because she's the tuna fish, and you just slap it on the table, and it stinks, and nobody likes it. No, everyone loves it. But I had run an SSD version with the advanced projectors, and I was looking at them like, man, she can't be legal because this is like the only valid reason why you would bring advanced projectors and actually make the SSD just became way too strong, and I could see why they removed that option there. But I have a lot of fun with it.
No, I think one of the coolest things in the SSD pack too, like talking about so there's also a lot of upgrades in there, and I agree with you. I like the Assault prototype so much better because like if you look at all the four different ship cards, the Assault prototype is almost as good as the more than 400 point, like the epic versions. And I'm like especially that front arc, because the front arc is everything, and the Assault, like especially at long range, you've got so many red dice there, plus 2 turbo laser slots and your 3 officers. But like Karneck, I think Karneck is going to be a game changer, not just for the SSD, but for Simoons as well. I think a Karneck on a Simoon might be
or Archidans.
I hadn't thought about that. You just threw a curveball at me right there.
Because most people, when you bring Archidans, if you want to bring more than one, you need Vader for the reliable reroll. But if you just want to bring just the one, the one, and you usually don't have an officer you need on it, so Karneck seems like a great answer to me on them.
No, that's a really good option. I've been in the habit. I like to run lots of Architans, but like I've been in the habit of putting Intel Officer on several of them, and just using Vader as my commander. But now with Palpatine, like that's one of the lists I want to run is Palpatine with a lot of Architans, because now maybe TRC on the Architans would be really nice that way. Granted, it's a trade-off. Because you won't be able to use it for defense. But Krennic's another good option. You don't have to, now you can do enhanced armament in Karneck on that one. Get your reliable rerolls that way. It's not bad. And I like to, I don't know. Now you're making me smile now thinking about the possibilities.
I just watched your video with the two quasars and the squadron stuff. I was just smiling the whole time I was watching. I'm like, this is just crazy off the wall stuff. It's not meant to be competitive. It's meant to be fun. Fly what's going to be fun. What sounds interesting. What's going to throw a curveball at people.
That many quasars? I mean, like, they could be one shot. They totally could. But then at the same time, if I can attack you with 14 ties and in one round, I mean,
what does it matter? You might,
it's
just don't let them get flagged to death.
Absolutely. And again, if you can keep that one ship closer with the stronghold, basically to make the attack obstructed, then you have a really good chance of preventing them from getting flagged. But I don't know. I like to think of fun builds like that because, like, that's one thing I think that's great about this game is that there is no, I don't want to say there is no meta because there is a meta, but it's such a big meta. Like, yes. I tell people this as I teach a lot of Armada at cons and at different events and stuff. And when I'm telling somebody new about this game, especially somebody who's already got a gaming background, I tell them it's like the meta is like this big. Like, everything is viable. There is nothing that's just outright bad. And it's, even the stuff from Wave 1 is still competitive. Like, victories are still viable. I don't want to say it's competitive, especially a Vic 2, with disposable capacitors and stuff. Like it's not a bad ship. It's not.
They
bad
have
at
a
all.
place. Yes, absolutely. I agree with you.
Yeah, and any ship can be part of a winning list. So
I mean, we just mentioned about how there's an Archidans and Worlds, and everyone was like, "Oh, Archidans will never see top table."
Like, that doesn't even fly
and it
with
won
me.
Worlds.
I've won so many, well, at least smaller local events with many Architans lists, but maybe that's just because people weren't prepared for it. But yeah, no, I'm a. You don't have to convince me that Architans are great. I absolutely love them, but I think they're a ship that also takes a little bit of, because of the unique movement pattern, they take a little bit of a learning curve. And I feel like I've gotten kind of good with them, but I've also lost some games with them as well. So SSD is coming, probably either maybe at the same time or shortly thereafter. We're going to get Rebellion in the Rim, so we're going to get a new campaign for Armada. I know we don't know a whole lot about it, but we know a few things. So what do you think about this campaign so far?
So anyone who buys the first off, there's lots of new things. It's mind-boggling how much they're stuffing into this expansion pack. Because for a long time, I think the community we've really asked FFG, like, it's cool that we get plastic spaceships, but we would really love a card-only expansion. And we saw that a little bit with the Corellian Conflict, not so much. Which was
great,
but which is still a great expansion, but they've really taken that to heart. Like, okay, you guys want more ship titles? Yes. You
Absolutely.
Want more objectives? Yeah. You want more squadrons? Yeah. It's like we're like a Labrador. All we're doing is shaking our head up and down.
Absolutely. I mean, titles alone. Like, I'd be like, shut up and take my money. Like, I don't know. We don't know how many titles we're getting. We don't know. But,
the information that I have is that there is going to be at least one ship title for each ship in there.
If that's true, that's amazing. I think we've only seen Spoiled, Victory, and whatchamacallit, I thought maybe the only one, the Victory title. I think it's the only one.
Just the one Victory title. Yeah.
So that being said, of course, now that's an early one. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get new ISD titles because we have so many already. I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't get like maybe an MC-75 title because they're pretty different. Like, some ships I think have a pretty good balance of titles already, whereas some really need the help. And so I'm actually looking forward to like an extra Nebulon title and an extra Gladiator title, something to maybe make Demolisher not so crazy. But
yes, new reasons to bring ships we love but have fallen out of favor.
Absolutely, and that's a win-win for FFG too, because now all of a sudden, maybe I should pick up a second Gladiator. Oh, well, maybe I should pick up another Nebulon. Oh, maybe I should pick up another Victory because now I want to run Warlord and this new Victory title, or what have you. So, like, I think that's just, a cardboard expansion just breathes new life into 7 waves of existing product already. So I think that's really cool.
And besides the new squadrons for rogues and villains, we already have seen Lando and IG-88B. And from what has been, again, the grapevine that I've been hearing through is that the new one for the fire spray and the YV-666 are both, they're not going to blow the the Empire into crazy territory, but they're saying that it's going to be reasons to bring those squadrons again. Which I love the YV-666. It's just an awful ship.
Yeah, no, now I do want to let it, just in case in case things have kind of leaked that aren't revealed yet, though we don't want to we don't want to leak anything if it hasn't been. So
I should state up front, nothing that's been told to me is NDA breaking. I just sit and I listen and I observe and I collect information and I piece a lot of stuff together myself. And when I actually go talk to someone, they're like, "Where did you get all this?" I'm like, I listen, man. That's what I do. So nothing's been NDA breaking. I just am very observant and I guess correctly.
Sometimes guess. I mean, I've made it my business to guess an awful lot.
Yes,
and I think at least so. One of the things we heard at Celebration, which I was at, but I couldn't go to the actual thing. I was so annoyed at that. Is like they're trying to stick more closely to the stuff that's canon. Not to say that they can't do Legends stuff. And we saw that the new game Outer Rim just came out, and there's an HWK, the Moldy Crow exists in that game. That's a brand new game, so they clearly have license to be able to pull from Legends when the situation warrants it. But I think whenever the situation doesn't warrant it, they're going to opt for something that's in the new canon, and that's part of more maybe something that they want to promote. And so I feel like that's one of the things that's going to guide a lot of the decisions that they make for any new pilots, any new crew members. So like we know Iden Versio is coming, so that's and that's pretty cool. Like I think is really cool for a number of reasons with Iden Versio, because she's from Battlefront 2, which featured the Raider that FFG actually created with Lucasfilm, and so it's like it's come full circle because that they created the Raider, and then that showed up in X-Wing, and then that showed up in Battlefront 2, and then it showed up in Armada, and then or vice versa, Armada before Battlefront 2, but now we're taking characters from Battlefront 2 and then putting them into our games, and it's just like this great circle, and who knows where that could go. I feel like next.
There is way more material out there that they can draw on, that we as players or fans, we think that there's not much there, but that's, as we see, as you just mentioned, there's so much more there that they can use that we have just no concept of. I think that there's a lot there that they can use that just because we may not be able to come up with it doesn't mean that they can. Because it's still all approved through. I mean, LucasArts and Disney still have to put their stamp on anything FFG does before they release
absolutely. It. And sometimes that can, from what I gather, that can be quite difficult sometimes and can slow. Like I'm sure they would, in some cases, they would like to be able to produce things a little bit faster and release things a little bit faster. But I've told the story before at Gen Con last year. I was trying to get the SSD on the table, and I had to go through licensing for them to be able to take it out of the case, and they didn't get the approval to do that. And I'm like, I just want to get shots of it, like how cool would that be to actually see it, And we had to wait all the way up until the live stream, to be able to get that. And even watching the live stream, that was from a camera really far away. Like I wanted to get some HD, high res footage, pictures like up close, like And so I'm really looking forward to that, just for the cinematic aspect too. Another thing about Rebellion in the Rim, how do you feel about 200-point battles?
I'm excited for it. I'm one of the few people. Again, I live so far away. I never really got a chance to jump into Corellian conflict, and the 200-point battles, I feel like, is a very smart move by FFG, because a lot of new players don't have $500-600 to immediately jump in to have a competitive fleet at 400 points. These 200-point battles are great for an experienced player to go to a store, set up some ships on a table, and be like, hey, you want to play a quick game that's only going to take 45 minutes? A 200-point battle you can do about 45 minutes, I feel like.
Yeah, I think
so that's a great way to draw people in.
I think realistically. So now let me ask you, as an Imperial player, can you ever imagine doing a 200-point battle that doesn't automatically have Demolisher in it?
I had that same thought. It's like, why not bring Demolisher? Why not bring Yavaris? Because those are best in their groups. They're just going to wipe everything out. And I think, just like with anything else, there are going to be a lot of people who bring those titles and those kinds of lists. And then there's going to be the kind of players that can be like, all right, I know most of these people are going to bring it. I'm going to bring a list that's going to counteract that. And I think, just like with anything, especially now after so many waves from when those ships and titles were initially released, there are applicable counters to them and tactics that you can use against them. Will they still be strong? Absolutely. Are they going to absolutely dominate and kill everything? I don't think so. I still think experience is going to play a large part of the smaller battles.
And further your point with counters, maybe some of the new titles we'll see in Rebellion in the Rim will specifically address that exact situation.
Yeah.
That's purely conjecture on my part, but I mean, I think that...
Or maybe it will say in the book, you cannot bring Yavaris, you cannot bring Demolisher.
I would rather avoid that, but...
No.
That would be something. No, I think the idea of 200-point battles is going to be a way for you to actually have like a casual gameplay day where you get to play more games and can get more people. And I think they're also said... that it's going to play on a 3x3, so it's going to play on half the area, so you can actually have more people show up to play. Maybe if you wanted to do an Armada league, like during the week, like as a lot of times people have less time to play in the week. We do that with X-Wing around here. There's like, I can go up at 7 o'clock, play a game for an hour, then come home, and I'm not, my whole day is not consumed with that one match. So it could be, really, really new opportunities.
In just the same way they released the Sector Fleet rules that if you want to go and you want to play Armada for 7 hours, you absolutely can.
and that's a great way to do it. That's a great way to do it. Okay, and now we also have 2 more ships that they're working on, and they made sure to tell us at Adepticon that there were more ships, and at Celebration they talked about them a little bit more, and then they said that they were sizable ships. So I think the only conclusion we can draw from that is that they're probably not small ships. So they're probably either medium or large, or maybe even huge. What do you got any hopes or expectations or anything?
The thing is that a lot of people think it's like, oh, the next ship's going to be a DP-20, or it's going to be, the Bellatok or whatever it's called from Return of the Jedi or Rogue One, and people keep mentioning all these small ships, and I keep trying to draw my brain around what would be a medium or a large ship that the Empire has, and it's essentially just, I think they're kind of playing that a little tight-lipped, is because I think, as you mentioned before about creating new content, I think it's going to be something we've not ever seen before, at least for the Empire. I think the Rebels still have a lot to draw on in terms of larger, other different types of capital ships, but ultimately, I'm super excited. I don't think they're going to be huge ships compared to the fact that they've already had so many issues of just even trying to get the SSD out. And yes, they have learned lessons from that, but we still have to remember production line. If they've got to make 4,000 SSDs or however many currently, because remember, their production line shares the same line as X-Wing. So to try to get that all work around would just be very difficult.
Sure.
So I'm thinking that they'll try to keep their production and try to get that back on track to regular releases and not try to bite off more than they can chew, like what I feel like they initially did when they took on the SSD project at the same time that they dropped X-Wing 2.0.
I think they took it on before that too, because it's been said that they started the SSD right after Wave 2 of Armada, which was the ISD. So they've been working on that for years, and
they originally wanted to release it during a Corellian conflict is when they wanted to release it.
That would have made sense, because now all of a sudden, if you're 500 point, and of course you can use it in the Corellian conflict, although admittedly it'll be tricky to squeeze a 411 point ship into a 500 point fleet, because that would mean you're like, all right, I've saved up all these points. We're like, yeah, Joe, you lost the last 6 matches. We're gonna lose this campaign, but you're gonna.
I don't care. I got the SSD.
Yeah. We lost the campaign, but you got your SSD. And then they come back and win the whole thing. No, but
I'm just really excited for not only that new content, but I'm sure the point you're going to bring up, and I feel is just, I think everyone was absolutely taken off guard by the Clone Wars announcement.
That's I think the writing was on the wall. I think.
Oh, sure. We knew that at some point.
At some point.
Some point. I thought. No, sorry. I'll go, and then you go.
No. All right. Well, I'll tell you what I thought. I thought that it was going to leak. I thought that the grapevine, so to speak, was going to be like, hey, they're working on it. Oh, my buddy, because I get a lot of emails from people who have a friend who's a friend, and I always tell them, please don't send me that stuff, because you're spreading things, and if it's true, now I can't well, first off, I don't know if it's true, but whether it's true or not, and like now all of a sudden you put me in a weird position because now I don't want to
Right.
speculate on that anymore because maybe unknowingly I'm breaking somebody's NDA. So having been under multiple NDAs in the past, I know how serious those are, and I don't want to risk FFG losing the license, especially if it's something like that's a really big deal, like maybe the Clone Wars coming to this new game. So like just so in case anybody's watching, please don't email me your insider info like my friend just said, but I expected that sort of stuff would happen, and the word would go around that people would be like, "It turns out the Clone Wars is in development or whatever," and there was nothing like that. All we had was hopes and dreams, and rebellions are built on hope. But apparently, the Clone Wars, is built on hope as well because everybody even people that I've talked to who have seemed to be very knowledgeable about what was coming had no idea. So and of course we all thought it was going to eventually come, but when was the key?
Right.
I thought it wasn't going to be until maybe after Legion had kind of calmed down, and Legion
That
has
was
no
my thought,
signs
too.
of calming down either. All these games are going so great, and I'm super excited. I mean, what do you what was your initial reaction?
So the Clone Wars, my initial reaction was just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're finally getting Clone Wars. I love Clone Wars. I finally, and people will probably tear me down for this, but I finally watched the Clone Wars cartoon for the first time a couple of months ago. I never really watched it, got into it, and man, immediately I was just sucked into to everything. And I'm just as excited as anyone else is. And I initially thought that FFG was going to try to steady the boat for the Galactic Civil War portion before jumping into it. But for me personally, if they want it, again, when you think about it, for FFG, it makes perfect sense. We know Armada has had not so great sales because, again, no new releases. What's the best way to revitalize that name brand by offering the Clone Wars and getting a lot of people who maybe aren't interested in Galactic Civil era but want Clone Wars? Like, think of like immediately it's going to pull all them in. It's going to pull back all these people who have left for other games because it's new content, new things coming out. And I just think that, in the end, what I preferred that a different way compared to how it came about. Like with many things, FFG is working on better communication, which we're all very happy for. But, I'm just happy that at least they are moving forward and having plans and designs rather than how we kind of were in that limbo for so long, like what's going on, guys. And so I feel like that they have heard those complaints, they're addressing it, they're moving forward with new content, and again, they're going to give us so much more to reward us for our patience.
I agree. I'm worried a little bit about the timing though because maybe I feel like maybe there's been fears, and I have a lot of friends who are more worry-warts than I am, but they said, oh, like one of the fears was that they're purposely timing everything in the worst possible way to shoot themselves in the foot. Like Armada hadn't got anything for over a year, and then the one thing they do get is something people can't afford. So then they're gonna some corporate executive will look at that and say, "See, I told you we shouldn't have made anything else for Armada." And they're like, "No, you just made the worst possible thing at the worst possible time. Not that the SSD is bad, but at the price point, when sales are a concern, that's something not everybody can buy. If you had made an SSD plus a squadron pack to come out at the same time, you would see how many people can buy the squadron pack at least, right? So something like that would have been pretty cool and asymmetrical at the same time. But yeah, so I see that and I think, okay, Clone Wars, great, revitalize it. But by the time it comes out, are all of those young 20-something people who grew up with the Clone Wars, are they going to have already invested in X-Wing and or Legion and won't have anything left for Armada? And that's what worries me. Is something like that going to happen? I'm really hoping that the launch wave for Clone Wars features some really stellar stuff, like maybe like a Lucra Hulk is announced with a launch wave, so you get like this really iconic ship from the Clone Wars. Obviously, I think a Venator is something that you have to have. You have to have that.
You got to have it.
Yeah, and of course, like. Now, the thing is, there's only so many ships.
True.
At least right now, there is another season coming, so they could still, they could have a few more surprises for us, even though I think the storylines for Clone Wars are pretty much known. All of the CGI hasn't been, shown yet. So there's always that chance we'll get a couple more, a couple little more Easter eggs thrown in. But it's fine, especially if they have the capability to add new titles and things like that. maybe we get 7 or 8 waves of Clone Wars and hit a stopping point, and they're like, oh, but we have cardboard expansions, so like maybe once a year or once every 2 years we get like a new title for every ship in the Clone Wars fleet. Boom, whole new meta overnight. And that's great. We don't even need non-stop releases, and I think Armada's okay with that type of release schedule. So it's exciting to me. It really is. I feel like Armada was made to be in the Clone Wars more so than the Galactic Civil War.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you about that whole cardboard expansion because, I mean, as much as I'm a fan of the SSD, I'm definitely more excited about Rebellion in the Rim than I am about the SSD now, personally.
Mm-hmm.
So I can definitely see people being fine with cardboard expansions rather than, we demand a new ship every single, 6 months or whatever. I definitely feel like that says a lot about our player base compared to potentially some other titles.
Oh yeah, I'm on the fence on which one I'm more excited. I know Rebellion in the Rim is going to do more for the game as a whole, but at the same time, the SSD is going to be so gorgeous. I just can't I'm such a visual gamer. Like I take pictures of my games all the time when I'm playing, and I love that. And so I'm really looking forward to that aspect of it. So I think that's we've talked about just about everything that is going to be coming out, at least the stuff that we're aware of right now. Do you have any other board games or tabletop games that you're keeping you busy when you're not playing Armada right now these days?
I've been playing a lot of Gloomhaven, and
really?
it's $100, or I got it for $100. And when I first got it, I was like, man, I hope. Well, it's me and my brothers who all play, and we get together once a week or every other week.
Okay, so you're able to keep a campaign going.
Yes, and it pretty much just take Dungeons and Dragons, except the game is the DM and you're all just the players. And it's just, I love the card mechanic of, have you played Gloomhaven at all?
I played one round of it, and campaign games usually aren't as good for me because I am very busy. But I know, like, I'm looking forward to retirement and being able to really dive into games like that. So that's one of the reasons I'm less excited for Rebellion in the Rim. Is not because it's like I'm only looking at one half of it that I'm personally hyped for. Although I'll probably try to do the campaign, but it's it's kind of a mixed bag.
It's the same deal for me. I'm 3 hours away from people, so I won't be playing the campaign. But Gloomhaven, I just love how the story is. It's very focused. You have multiple options you're given as a party that you have to decide on how you're going to tackle. Right now we have 6 different scenarios we have to go to, and all of them have branching storylines that will either lock other scenarios or open up new ones. And then the combat is so smooth. Like when you first start doing the combat, it's hard to grasp, but once you actually understand it and start playing it, it's so much fun and so different, and just that's what I've been mainly playing, and it's a lot of fun. Gloomhaven, I'm excited for. I saw your video that you did on Outer Rim. I definitely can see, and I definitely agree with a lot of points you brought up, because I played the demo at Adepticon, and I was blown away by it. And of course, you can only do so much of the demo. I really thought that
short session.
Yeah, I was really hoping that they would expand more on player versus player aspect, but I think the Outer Rim, it's so flexible. You probably could house rule a lot of things that try to help balance that game.
I think you can definitely do that, and I think a lot of stuff. I feel like that game was made to have expansions for it because of the fact that it's rogues. They will definitely
have expansions.
Yeah, I mean it's FFG, of course it's going to be expansions. But how many really? But a lot of things like that. Like I don't know if you've ever played Rebellion. With my favorite board game of all time, but it's only a 2-player game, even though it says 2 to 4. It's only a 2-player game, so that's really the drawback. Right. But with that one too, it had a few small problems. Expansion fixed those problems, and the game is practically perfect. So it's like it's still worth it. Although I will admit, if it didn't have the Star Wars theme for Outer Rim, might not have picked it up.
That's true. Yeah, a lot of people compare it to the Firefly board game, but they definitely say that the Outer Rim is a little bit more engaging, a little bit more balanced. All I know is I had a fantastic time when I played it, and I definitely want to pick it up just because of that. Yeah,
I wanted to make sure I gave it some some fair reviews, because I tend to hype everything up so much, and I'm like, here's a case where I am hyped, but at the same time I can kind of be more objective as well, because it's
sure.
Yeah. All right, so we had Celebration. kind of segueing away from games a little bit, before we wrap this up, I don't want to let you off the hook without talking about some of the news from, like, we got the episode 9 trailer. Have you seen the episode 9 trailer?
Of course.
Do you have any theories, or do you think it was more of just a tease, or do you think that it really told us anything about the movie?
I mean, if you look at all the past trailers of Star Wars, even from the original trilogy, A New Hope, it never fully explains what the actual movie is until you watch it. And I know a lot of people were frustrated and upset by Last Jedi. I know on my very first viewing of The Last Jedi, I was like, what is this? I don't understand it. But then when I actually went back and rewatched Force Awakens and then rewatched The Last Jedi, I actually was like, I felt more complete watching it a second and a third time without immediately jumping to the stuff. I mean, there definitely are some issues that could have been addressed better, but I think
I
ultimately, The Rise of Skywalker, while I feel like is a terrible title personally, I feel like the movie itself is going to be great. It's just a question of, is it actually going to complete that greatness that we heavily have put on it, or is it going to be complete in the fact of it's actually going to confidently close out the series?
I think what happens is, turns out they're going to say Rey actually was pregnant with the Force through Luke indirectly. So, like, no, nothing. And then she gives birth to a baby Skywalker, and he walks on air. It's a new Force power, and they say he's skywalking, and he does it. And he keeps going up higher and higher, and so just like an elevator. So it's literally, it's not even a play on words. It's just like this little baby Skywalker just floats away, and then they have to try and find him, and they get in the Falcon, and Chewie can't see him, and that's what the whole movie's about. And so they put a
Wait, do you write the new Star Wars books?
Yeah, I was actually named as the
When's your new
director.
book coming out?
Yeah, it's called Absurdities in Florida. Florida man writes Star Wars. All right. All right. So, what do you think of the Mandalorian? Also, because that was the other really big thing.
I'll be honest. The only reason why I'm getting Disney Plus is because I want to watch Mandalorian. Because oh shoot, now I can't remember his name. Is it Pablo?
Pablo Hidalgo.
What's his name? Yes.
Or wait, Pablo Hidalgo's a. Never mind. You're talking about the actor.
The actor for the
yes.
Mandalorian.
Oh my gosh! Now that you said
it,
if you hadn't just said it,
he was in Game of Thrones. He was in Narcos. Everyone knows who I'm talking about.
The lead, yes, the Mandalorian.
He's fantastic. And my personal opinion is he wouldn't have signed on to do this series if it was not well written and it was actually engaging and exciting and something that's going to be just fantastic, because he's an amazing actor, is my personal opinion.
Yeah, he's amazing in everything I've seen him in, and I agree with you. And from the little bit of footage that we have seen, it looks like a really well done show. Now, granted, as a fan, I kind of want to withhold some of my expectations, but it's hard to keep them in check when the show looks as gritty as it does. My only hope is that they don't have like a whole bunch of Jedi in the first season.
Me too.
Because I'm okay if they want to have a lightsaber at some point. Preferably hold that off until season 2 or season 3. Like let the show establish its own character first. And then maybe if the story suits it, if there's a good reason, maybe if you bring in the dark saber, then all of a sudden there's a challenge, or you have then that would be a good justification for it. But there's enough scum and villainy in the Outer Rim or wherever they do this stuff to really have a great grown-up like Star Wars for adults, just like Rogue One was pretty much Star Wars for grown-ups.
Well, you've heard that Diego Luna is coming back for a Rogue One prequel series TV show.
Yeah, I have mixed emotions about that.
So,
I have heard that though, but only because I'm not a big fan of putting a character in at high-risk situations when you know their fate already.
That's fair. That's fair.
So hopefully the way a show like that is done, whereas he's not the character that's put in danger, like maybe just like how Leia was in Resistance. I don't know if you've watched Resistance, but basically
I need to start.
If he's like a central hub character and it introduces new characters that branch off of him and it follows these other characters, we need to report back to Cassian Andor, and if he's just kind of in the background, or at least not the only main character, like
right.
And I would like it if the show goes past Rogue One, like maybe he dies and then you keep the show going. Like I hope they
How
don't
do
name,
they carry on without him? Yeah, I
well,
think that'd be fantastic.
I don't know if you watch Game of Thrones, but that kind of,
Of
they
course.
laid the groundwork for how you carry on. I thought Sean Bean was the main character in Game of Thrones, Ned Stark in the first season. I'm like, oh, I guess I was wrong. Well, maybe it's his son, Robb Stark. I guess I was wrong.
The third
Season 2.
season,
Yeah.
yeah.
So people just keep dying, and that's what ruined TV for me. Is it's like I need there to be high stakes. I need to not know what's coming for me to actually care about what's happening now, and and so that's usually my problem with any type of prequel, which Star Wars loves to do prequels in a world
True.
where you already know. Look, Star Wars is galactic stakes, man. You've got Death Stars blowing up entire planets. You've got Starkiller Blaze blowing up entire systems. Like the stakes are pretty high. So I have a hard time making a Solo movie where I know that Solo and Lando and Chewie are fine, but like, oh, he's gonna fall off of the train. No, he's not. He's still got a head in Episode 4. So it's like, granted, I know that it's about the journey, not about the destination. But for me personally, I care a little bit more about the destination. But
Sure.
All
I view it as a way for them to introduce more ships, more content, more characters that can then be added to our games.
that's a fantastic observation. I can't fault you on that. And I think for my last question, favorite Star Wars movie?
Ooh, Empire Strikes Back, hands down.
That's fair. That's fair. All right. So I'm going to let you go. I want to thank you for hanging out with us. I want to remind all of you guys watching this, make sure you click on the Star Wars Armada Explained, and I'll put a link to that in the channel below in the description. Subscribe to the channel. Let's help him get past 1,000 and then some. If you're watching this in the future and he's already past 1,000, keep going. Shoot for 2,000. Just keep it going and keep it going. Because
can I add one more thing to that?
Absolutely.
So sorry to interrupt, but I do have a raffle going on. If you do subscribe, I do have a raffle video. Yeah, so does Crabbok and Tim. He's got a raffle as
I'm
well.
pointing to you on the other thing.
But if you go watch the video and you comment, that as well. I'm trying to reward everyone who's helping me get to that point. And all I can say to you, Crabbok, is again, thank you so much. Sorry, I wanted to mention earlier.
No, absolutely. We'll subscribe, leave a comment, enter to win the giveaway. There we go. Subscribe and click the link down here, somewhere down there. I don't know. I'll have to make the pointing work later. All right. Well, I want to thank you so much for hanging out with us, and hopefully, maybe I don't know if you're going to Gen Con or not, but if not Gen Con, maybe next Adepticon. We'll have to see how it goes, but maybe we'll get a game in one of these days.
Absolutely.
All right. I want to thank you so much for watching, and as always, everybody, have a great day.
Bye.
See ya.